All right, so I've been having a lot of questions about how net terms work with your buyers and your publishers. And so I wanted to make this video to go over the net terms essentially. So net terms is just allows you a grace period to pay. So essentially when you get an invoice, you agree on net terms. So net 7, net 3. So whatever number that is, let's say you're on weekly net terms. So weekly net 7s, that's usually what my deal is. I do have some publishers that I'm on monthly net 3s, but essentially calls run for a full week. If I'm on weekly net 7, they run from a full week, and then they invoice me on that seventh day, and then I have net 7, which is 7 days extra to pay. Okay, so I'm gonna walk you through a few scenarios of what that looks like, and things in real time, like from my dashboard on what that looks like. Okay, so to give you a visual, and I'm gonna tell you guys this, especially if you're new starting out, you always want to make sure that your buyer, it pays you upfront for the calls, no matter what, because it's not like running ads where you have to go in, like watch this. Like for example, I'm running ads. I just launched this. It's not like ads where you have to wait on leads to come in. The calls are already running, so you don't have to worry about um, leads getting generated. You don't have to tell them, hey, like it's gonna take about 7 days for calls to get delivered. No, you already are all set up. So as soon as you plug the buyer in, they can get calls that same day or very next day. And so always get your payments up front. Why? Well, leads are leads at the end of the day. And you never truly understand the sales process of a person or a sales rep, whether they be in home services, insurance, law, whatever. Like you never know their sales floor. You can advise them as much as they want, but they could still suck at sales. So imagine you send them the most fire calls and they don't close and you have them on net terms. Now they're not incentivized to pay you. And so we've had situations where people didn't pay us for calls. And so we switched over and we're like, hey, we're not doing any net terms at all. Everything is pay up front. And so every time I tell anybody that, comes to me for coaching or anything, I tell them, hey, only work on upfront payments, no matter what, right? Unless unless you are landing a massive deal in terms of with a huge law firm, with a huge insurance agency, and you actually go get invoice insurance. And so you can go get invoice insurance from any one of those insurance companies that you want. That'll be in a later video, but essentially I'm going to walk you through this. So this is scenario one. Scenario one is what you should be doing, where your buyer pays you for upfront calls, excuse me. So give you an example. On my platform, agent calls, we charge a minimum of $250 to just put money in your account, right? So $250, I get that money up front, okay? And as you take calls on day one, the buyers are the ones receiving calls. So calls are running, then they receive those calls. Every call is logged and tracked on every billable call, because on every billable call, you should know this already. I'm making this ugly. You should know this already. A billable call equals went past buffer time. So it went past the buffer time, whether it be 90, 120, 10, 25, whatever, you name it, it went past that buffer time. Okay? And so that's what's deemed a billable call. So they have that time period to qualify them. Once it passes that, that's deemed as a billable call. So let's say, you're every time it passes a billable, you pay your publisher $40. Well, let's say they took 10 calls. They went past the billable. Well, on that seventh day, 10 calls, multiply that by 40, you owe your publisher $400, and they're going to invoice you on that seventh day. So essentially, like me, I go Monday to Sunday. So calls start on Monday, I get invoiced on Sunday, right? So when you get invoiced on Sunday, I'm on net 7 terms. So now I have 7 days to withdraw that money from my payment processor. It touches my payment processor within 1 to 2 days. It touches my bank account within 1 to 2 days, and it allows me enough time to pay my publisher. Okay, because I have 7 days. Technically, I can pay them on the following Sunday, right? So that's why sometimes it's very important. All the time, it's very important to get the upfront cash, because like I mean, it's safer, one, and two, you never have to deal with like chasing people around, right? So I hope that made sense there. If not, I'll make it make more sense on an actual visual within my Retriever. So we'll see in here. This is scenario 2, right? Scenario 1 and 2 are very similar, just a few added steps. So this one could be here too as well. It could be public. You always need to make sure that your publisher agrees to terms. So like if you're working net terms with anybody, with your buyer, your publisher needs to agree with those terms too. So essentially, let's say your buyer, you tell your buyer, you work a deal with your buyer, and it's like, hey, you're gonna work on net 7 terms, weekly net 7 terms. Okay. Well, your publisher needs to be aligned with that. And so your publisher probably needs to be weekly net 10, because you need a gap between there to make sure that when your buyer sends you a wire, you still give it time to clear the bank, and then you turn around and send your payout to your publisher. So let's dive into it. So first, your publisher agrees to the terms. Your buyer also agrees to the terms. Calls start routing. They receive calls all week. Every call is logged, tracked, and billable. The week closes. The publisher invoices you on your term, which is weekly net 7. You invoice your buyer, which is net 3. It's weekly net 3 for your buyer. Your buyer has 3 days to pay you because it's that net 3, and then that's you still had that 7 days to pay your publisher, which gives you and buys you an additional 4 days from when your buyer pays you. Okay, does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Now I'm actually going to show you a real example inside of my Retriever on what that looks like. So I want to give you guys an example on one publisher here. If we go in, and I was buying calls from these people way back then, and this was like, this is just one set of numbers here. But I just pulled calls from March 16th to the 22nd, so Monday through Sunday, the 16th through the 22nd, right? So essentially, calls started routing on Monday. We had all these days to take calls, so Monday through Friday, or if you take calls on Saturday, Monday through Saturday, and all those calls just piled up, which equaled out to a total of 53 billable calls. And so from those 53 billable calls, they invoiced me on Sunday, and I still had a total of 7 days to pay them the following week to make sure that the money cleared, which, as you can see here, the payout was $24.91. So I had a total of an additional 7 days to pay them $24.91, right? Withdrew the money from my payment processor and paid them out. Okay. So that is a visual representation of how that works. I hope that makes sense on net payment terms. Everything is super negotiable with your publishers. Make sure that you're completely aligned with your buyer and your publisher. If you're doing net terms, which with your buyer, I don't recommend. I tell everybody, hey, get the money up front no matter what, even if it's just one call at a time, which I still don't recommend. I think you should do minimum, like if you're just starting out, you should do a minimum of $1,000, minimum $500 to $1,000. Make sure to get as much cash up front as possible to make it make sense. Yeah, and the LTV on these guys are a lot, so it just makes a whole lot of sense. But again, you're middlemaning everything, so you don't really have to worry about much, especially if you're getting the calls up front. They pay you, calls route, you withdraw the money, you pay your publisher, you keep the margin. It's super simple. I hope the net terms make sense. And if you guys want additional help, I host a weekly webinar every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. You guys feel free. There's going to be a link below to hop on and just learn. I give so much sauce on pay-per-call and pay-per-lead within on my webinars. So I'll leave the link below.